a dense forest, one where humans are forbidden to set foot. The people of the nearby town don't believe in the old stories meant to keep them away from this place. To them, it's nothing more than a myth. But what happens there is far from fiction, it's pure terror. This story is filled with adventure and mystery, and it begins with a warning. Across the world, there are ancient texts that speak of forbidden lands, places said to hide things beyond human understanding, and those who ignore these warnings often realize their mistake when it's far too late. We open on Scott, a terrified young man filming himself deep inside the forest. His hands are trembling as he speaks. He says he's an American tourist who came to Panama's Darién forest with his friends. By mistake, they wandered into a part of the jungle where entry is strictly prohibited. Now, something strange, something unseen is following them. Before he can scream for help, a horrifying shriek echoes through the air, and then Scott and his friends vanish without a trace. But how did it all begin? Scott and his girlfriend Steve were packing for their vacation with friends. As they prepared for their flight, they received a video call from Elena. Trevor and Charlie had already reached Panama and were partying on the beach. Scott told them he and Steve would be there by noon. Their flight was only 2 hours away. After a few jokes and laughs, they headed out for the airport. Upon arrival, they waited for their flight, and soon after landing in Panama, a van from their hotel picked them up. The ride was long. Their hotel was nestled deep in the jungle, farther than expected. But finally, they arrived and reunited with their friends. That night, the whole group partied on the beach, music, dancing, drinks, everything felt perfect. Trevor even met a local girl named Carmen, and the two instantly hit it off. Soon, Carmen became part of their group. Later, another local guy named Julio showed up, introduced by Carmen. The party picked up again, laughter, music, joy, a perfect night. None of them had any idea how terrifying the coming days would be. The next morning, Scott started browsing for interesting tourist spots. That's when he stumbled upon an article about the Darién Gap, a mysterious jungle where, according to reports, every tourist who ventured in had vanished without a trace. Intrigued, Scott dug deeper and found an old video. In the footage, a group of tourists was heading toward the jungle when they spotted something strange in the distance. The moment they saw it, panic took over. They turned and ran for their lives. Scott didn't realize that just 2 days later, he'd be filming a video exactly like that one. But instead of fear, excitement took hold of him. The beauty of the forest in that footage made him even more eager to explore it. The next morning, he showed the video to Julio. Julio admitted there was indeed a beautiful waterfall deep inside the jungle, but warned them never to go there. He said his ancestors had always forbidden it. According to local legends, something beyond human comprehension lived in that forest. The tribes who live near the jungle believe in a horrifying truth. They speak of chupacabras, demonic spirits that are neither fully human nor fully animal. It's said that anyone who steps into the forest is marked for death by these creatures. In a grave tone, Julio said, "That's why no one ever comes back." But the city folks laughed it off as superstition, just bedtime stories meant to scare children. Later that evening, while everyone was busy chatting, Steve showed Elena a safety app she had installed on her phone. She explained that it could upload videos and photos in real time to YouTube and Facebook, automatically tagging people using facial recognition, a smart safety tool for emergencies. At night, the group gathered around a campfire, laughing and sharing stories. But the mood shifted when someone brought up the idea of visiting the hidden waterfall deep in the forest. The discussion turned into excitement. The idea of exploring an unknown part of the jungle felt thrilling. When Julio overheard their plan, he panicked. He immediately tried to stop them. "You must not go there," he warned. He even begged Carmen not to take them under any circumstances. But by the next morning, the group had already made up their minds. Despite Julio's warnings, they convinced Carmen it would just be a fun adventure, nothing more. At first, she hesitated, but after all the teasing and peer pressure, she gave in. Full of excitement, they loaded into Carmen's Jeep and headed off toward the jungle. Meanwhile, Julio arrived at the beach only to learn that Carmen had already taken the tourists into the Darién Gap. His face went pale. Every warning he had given, ignored. He could feel something terrible was about to happen. Without wasting a second, he jumped into his truck and sped toward the jungle, determined to reach them before it was too late. Carmen and her group finally reached the edge of the forest. Beyond, it lay their destination, the magnificent waterfall they were so eager to see. But the car couldn't go any further. Ahead lay only thick, endless woods. They would have to continue on foot. As they began their trek, Julio kept calling Carmen again and again. His heart was pounding. He wanted to warn her one last time, but Carmen ignored every call. When Julio realized she wasn't going to answer, he sent a desperate voice message. But Carmen was too lost in the thrill of adventure to care. Laughing with Trevor and the others, She kept moving forward, completely unaware that something in the shadows was watching them, tracking their every move. After half an hour of hiking, the group finally reached the waterfall, a breathtaking sight. They jumped into the water without hesitation, snapping photos and celebrating what they thought would be a perfect trip. But the jungle had not yet shown its true face. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, Julio finally reached the area. But suddenly, something hit him hard from behind. A powerful jolt surged through his body. Terrified, he spun around and bolted back toward his car, his heartbeat pounding uncontrollably. Back at the waterfall, after their fun swim, Trevor and Carmen decided to take a quiet walk deeper into the woods. They sat together, enjoying the peaceful moment, until Carmen suddenly felt something off. It was as if someone or something was watching them. She whispered her fear to Trevor, but he brushed it off as her imagination. To calm her down, he decided to take a quick look around. As he wandered between the trees, disappearing deeper into the shadows, Trevor looked around, scanning the trees and the shadows. But when several minutes passed and he still hadn't returned, Carmen began to panic. She called out his name, no response. A strange uneasiness filled her chest, and she decided to go look for him herself. Meanwhile, Scott and the others were getting dressed after their swim when a sudden, sharp scream echoed through the jungle. It was Carmen. Without a second's hesitation, everyone sprinted toward the sound. At the same time, Trevor, still searching for Carmen, heard her scream too. Terrified, he turned and started running back as fast as he could. On his way, something on the ground caught his eye: Carmen's bracelet. His heart began pounding in his chest. With trembling hands, he picked it up and hurried toward the others. When he reached them, he held out the bracelet, gasping for breath. "Carmen's gone," he said, his voice shaking. Fear spread across everyone's faces. They started shouting her name, searching every corner of the forest, but time kept passing, and there was no trace of her. That's when they finally realized something was terribly wrong. Scott pulled out his phone to call the hotel for help, but there was no signal. Still, he refused to give up. Maybe there was a stronger network higher up, he thought, and began climbing toward an elevated spot. But the deeper they went, the more the jungle seemed alive, as if it didn't want to let them leave. Darkness began to fall, and the once beautiful forest turned sinister. The silence was heavy, the air thick with tension. Just when they thought things couldn't get worse, the bushes nearby began to move. It was there, the very thing Julio had warned them about. Two glowing eyes stared at them through the dark. A chill ran through the entire group. Their hearts pounded like drums. Without thinking, they all broke into a run, scattering in every direction. Panic took over. In the pitch-black night, they couldn't see where they were going. Branches whipped their faces, their footsteps echoed, and one by one they became separated. The jungle echoed with their terrified screams, but none of them could see each other anymore. Trevor and Elena finally stopped to catch their breath, but before they could calm down, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. It was Charlie. Without a second thought, they ran toward the sound, only to freeze in horror at what they found. Charlie lay motionless on the ground, his body drenched in blood, deep claw-like wounds tearing through his skin. Terror gripped them both. Without wasting a second, they turned and sprinted back towards Scott and Steve. Their breathing was ragged, their faces pale, and as soon as they reached the others, they blurted out what they'd seen. The truth hit them all at once. Julio had been right. There was something in this jungle. Scott's fear turned to rage. "This is all your fault," he shouted at Trevor. He pushed Trevor hard, his anger boiling over. Trevor, shaking with fury, shoved him right back. The two were about to explode into a fight when Elena and Steve jumped between them. "Stop!" Elena screamed. "If we want to survive, we have to think together, otherwise this jungle will kill us all." The group began climbing higher ground, desperate to find a place with a signal. The path felt endless, every step heavier than the last. Finally, after hours of struggle, they reached a spot where a faint signal flickered on their phones. Without wasting a second, Scott pulled out his phone and hit record. His voice trembled as he spoke. "We're trapped in the jungles of Panama. Something is out here, killing us. Please, send a rescue team. We don't have much time." Just as the message was sent, a terrifying scream ripped through the silence. It was Trevor. Scott and the girls sprinted toward the sound, hearts pounding. When they reached him, Trevor was lying on the ground, bleeding and barely able to move. His body looked like it was shutting down. As Scott rushed forward to help, a massive dark shadow loomed up behind him. From the darkness emerged the creature, huge, monstrous, its claws gleaming. Before Scott could react, it plunged its sharp talons into Trevor's chest and dragged him screaming into the jungle. His cries echoed through the night and then faded into silence. Scott froze, his mind blank, his body trembling. The only thought that hit him: run. He stumbled through the darkness, gasping for breath, pushing through thick trees and vines until he reached a dark cave. Without thinking, he stepped inside and froze. Right in front of him stood the creature. The cave echoed with horrible crunching sounds, the snapping of bones, the tearing of flesh. It was feeding on its own kind. Scott's entire body went numb. Moving slowly, silently, he began to back away, barely breathing. He had to get out before the creature noticed him. Step by step, he crept out of the cave and then ran, sprinting through the darkness to find Elena and Steve. Meanwhile, Julio had made it safely back to the city. Sitting in his car, trying to catch his breath, his phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Scott, a video. He opened it, and his face went pale. Scott's shaking voice pleaded for help. The group was trapped. Something in the jungle was hunting them. Julio's worst fears had come true. He rushed straight to his uncle, a respected elder of their local community, and showed him the video. The old man's expression turned grim. He instantly understood how serious things had become. By the next morning, Scott's video had gone viral. News outlets across Panama and the United States were filled with the story. Authorities acted immediately. Both governments launched a joint emergency rescue operation. Military helicopters took to the skies, and armed soldiers began searching deep within the forest. The jungle was dense, but the troops searched every corner. Scott, Steve, and Elena were hiding in a small clearing, exhausted, starving, and terrified. Then suddenly, the distant thump of helicopter blades echoed above them. Hope surged in their hearts. Rescue had arrived. They ran toward an open patch, waving their arms and shouting for help. But before they could reach safety, Steve tripped and fell. Screaming in pain, her leg was badly injured. Scott rushed to her, quickly wrapping a piece of cloth around the wound to stop the bleeding. Elena sprinted toward the helicopter to get help. She paused for a moment, catching her breath, then ran faster. Scott lifted Steve onto his back, struggling through the trees to reach her. As Elena neared the rescue team, relief spread across her face. She waved, shouting Scott's and Steve's names, signaling the soldiers. A cameraman from the rescue team was recording everything, capturing this moment of hope and survival. A news reporter was broadcasting live, showing the world how the rescue mission was unfolding. But just as the soldiers reached out to pull Elena aboard, a monstrous shadow burst out of the jungle. It moved with lightning speed and slammed into her. Elena's screams pierced the air. The creature sank its fangs into her head, and within seconds, she was gone. The world watched in shock as the live feed suddenly cut off. News anchors froze, horrified. The broadcast was immediately taken off air. Meanwhile, Scott, carrying Steve through the dense jungle, heard the commotion. They were close to safety when the creature reappeared, eyes burning with rage. It lunged forward, claws tearing into Steve's body, dragging her away. Scott grabbed a thick wooden branch and swung it with all his strength, smashing it across the monster's face. A piercing roar filled the air. The creature stumbled back, wounded but furious. Then came the sound of gunfire, rapid and loud. The military had arrived. Bullets tore through the air, striking the beast's body. It let out a final, guttural scream and vanished into the darkness of the jungle. Scott and Steve were saved. Soldiers rushed to them, lifting them into the helicopter and flying them to safety. They were taken to a hospital in Panama City where doctors treated their injuries. They had survived, but the horror they'd witnessed would haunt them forever. In the final moments of the story, news anchors discussed the disappearance of Scott's friends and the shocking appearance of the creature caught live on camera. Experts speculated about the unknown dangers hidden within the Darién jungle. The event captured the attention of the entire world. In response, the Panamanian government declared the area a restricted zone, permanently banning all tourist access to that region.